he became the most hated streamer on the planet by weaponizing a global glitch.
I'm gonna show you guys how far I can push the boundaries, and I'm gonna show you that the Korean government is not gonna do anything for me.
But it's about to cost him his sanity and freedom.
I'm a bad influence.
I've said it many times. I have no morals. I'm a sociopath.
The police.
I'm from America, USA.
While he was busy auditing the boundaries of a nation, the nation was quietly preparing a case that carried a maximum of 31 years in a prison cell. This is Ramsey Ismael, known to the internet as Johnny Somali. He spent months traveling across Asia with a singular disgusting mission: to humiliate entire nations for the price of a digital like. Before he was the face of a national crisis in South Korea, Johnny Somali was just another failed streamer in Arizona. In the US, he was a nobody. He knew that in a country with stand your ground laws, his brand of harassment had a shelf life of about 5 minutes. So he went looking for a victim that was too polite to fight back. He left the shores of the United States to take advantage of the politeness of Asian countries. He had multiple arrests in Japan and Israel, but in both cases, he walked away with a mere slap on the wrist. A small fine here, a 16-minute detention there. It convinced him he was untouchable. Next, he was on the streets of Seoul, turning being annoying into a high-stakes criminal enterprise. And the payout? A measly $700 in donations per stream, according to someone from his team. There was no limit to his madness, and for a long time, he got away with it. But Johnny Somali wasn't just chasing fame, he was participating in his own public liquidation. He mistook donations for support, failing to realize his audience wasn't cheering for his success, they were funding his self-sabotage. Today, we audit the final collapse of a man who thought he could glitch the world's legal systems, only to find himself trapped in the South Korea Pincer movement. To understand how he became the most hated streamer in the world, we have to go back to the very beginning. Johnny Somali earlier told his followers he was born and raised in Somalia under the harshest of conditions that saw him become a child soldier and a pirate. But that's a lie. He was born on September 26, 2000 in Arizona. Some say his father is from Somalia and his mother is from Ethiopia. But he now claims to have no Somali links despite his name.
I'm half Ethiopian, half Yemen.
Ismael began posting videos on YouTube in October 2022, although YouTube has since taken down his first channel after multiple violations. His first upload was a video of Halloween in Arizona, which barely gained any traction. He'd go on to upload a few vlogs in Bangkok, Thailand in the months that followed. They also didn't get many views. All of these factors and a desperation to become famous at any cost pushed him to tow a different path. Johnny Somali began streaming on Twitch around May 2023, initially presenting himself as a party streamer, traveling through Asia, visiting nightclubs, and attending events like the Thailand Full Moon Party. But after he didn't get much traction from filming normal videos, he decided to pivot to Nuisance streaming. For those who don't know, Nuisance streaming is a predatory business model often characterized by IRL broadcasting that involves public harassment, trespassing, and creating public disturbances for views. This brand of streaming was popularized by Ice Poseidon, Vitally, Jack Doherty, among others. While someone like Jack Doherty hides behind a bodyguard to perpetrate nuisance on the streets,
Yo, what's up? What's up? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, bro?
Johnny Somali keyed into a growing trend of targeting East Asian countries where social order is a religion. The blueprint for Somali's downfall was written in Tokyo. In May 2023, he landed in Japan with a camera and a specific disgusting strategy. Find the most painful part of a country's history, poke it until it bleeds. For Japan, that meant the atomic bombs that flattened Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. As soon as he landed, he got on a train and thought it was a great idea to remind everyone of that painful moment in Japan's history.
Yeah, Hiroshima? You know Hiroshima? Nagasaki? You know? Hiroshima, Nagasaki!
Although spamming the words Hiroshima and Nagasaki doesn't make any sense, he makes clear his intentions by mentioning Pearl Harbor and saying we'll do it again.
Pearl Harbor? You know Hiroshima, Nagasaki? We're gonna do it again.
The young man, who probably doesn't understand English, looks completely dazzled. However, a Korean American confronts Ismael and tells him to leave the Japanese man alone.
Where you from?
I'm from America.
You're from America?
Yes.
So am I.
You're from America?
Yeah, you're big obnoxious.
But Somali began harassing him as well.
You know what we do to you?
What do you do?
We will do again.
Do what?
Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You understand?
Do you think I'm Japanese?
Where are you from?
I'm from America.
Where are you from? What's your ethnicity?
Texas, buddy.
What's your ethnicity?
I'm Korean.
Then sit down, brother.
Why don't you sit your ass?
Korean War, you know what happened to you?
Come on.
Don't touch me.
I'm not with you, brother.
Don't touch me, brother. Korean War.
This moment from the stream went absolutely viral. The hate watchers were pouring in, and for Somali, the attention was exactly what he wanted. In the same month, Twitch permanently terminated his account for violating community guidelines regarding harassment and hate speech. So he moved on to Kick, and his supporters, as well as hate watchers, followed him there. Not facing any repercussions from law enforcement, random people in Japan began targeting him on the streets, recognizing him from his viral clips. Shortly after moving the Kick, he got hit with a 1-week ban, which forced him to keep a low profile for a while. When he returned to streaming, he was live on the streets, promising to become respectful, drop his nuisance behavior, and urging his followers to do the same. Judging by his personality, it's hard to tell if he actually meant it. In the middle of that stream, a random person targeted him from behind.
To know people in Japan, let's be respectful. You know what I mean? I hope nobody in the chat was saying weird shit. If I go back and whoa. Yo, what the is going on?
Seeing that he remained public villain number 1 and being respectful probably won't pay his bills, he spent the weeks that followed engaging in more provocative behavior, including shouting in public and harassing pedestrians and workers.
It's hella NPCs out here. This is crazy. These are NPCs, guys. We with the NPCs right now, bro.
But he wasn't done. He took things to a disgusting level by playing loud tsunami sirens in a crowded restaurant. Anyone familiar with Japan's history of tsunamis will find his actions abhorrent. The internet was screaming for an arrest. We were all anticipating the moment the Japanese legal system, famous for its 99% conviction rate, would finally lock him away for good. But it didn't happen.
Okay. The Japanese don't think you are good.
Okay.
I apologize to the Japanese.
Don't talk to randos and realize you're not a comedian.
I think I am.
After so many confrontations, which probably scared him a bit, he finally released an apology video.
このような迷惑行為は絶対にしません。
But the events that followed proved it was never a sincere apology. Not long after, he was back to disturbing the peace of a Tokyo subway, which led to the police being called on him. But that encounter didn't lead to an arrest, as he'd go on to claim racism when officers asked him to follow them to the station.
What are you touching me for? We on video.
By mid-2023, Johnny Somali could no longer do IRL streams in Japan without meeting someone willing to risk it all to frustrate him out of the country. One day, he was confronted by another American, a man married to a Japanese woman, who held him accountable for his Hiroshima-Nagasaki taunts. Somali's immediate response was to claim he was a troll and that he had already apologized.
I'm a troll. My wife is Japanese. Okay. You go there insulting people like that. You know how many people from Hiroshima joking about that now? So why are you talking about the people?
To the casual observer, it looks like he was humbled. But behind the scenes, he was just waiting for his next hit of clout. Sensing the heat in Japan was reaching a boiling point, Somali retreated to Bali, then later Thailand, hoping for things to cool down. But while in Thailand, the pattern repeated. He continued to face confrontations from random people who recognized him from his viral videos in Japan. Right on that stream, he met an English-speaking man who made sure to leave a strong physical contact. Seeing that he continued to face heat for what happened in Japan, a normal human being would be repentant, but not Johnny Somali. He decided to go back to Japan where it all started, promising to make amends. But the events that followed proved he was only trolling. To him, every form of attention was good for his brand, especially the negative attention. As soon as he returned to Japan, he linked up with a fellow Nuisance streamer, Gino, and his new partner in crime gave him enough fuel for a fresh taste of infamy. He began to do the direct opposite of what he promised he was gonna do, trolling workers at a McDonald's and causing a scene. Seeing that Johnny Somali doubled down on his antics in Japan, the local population became even more aggressive towards him. Nearly every IRL stream ended with a strong physical contact. But all of that didn't deter him as he kept pushing the boundaries. But in September 2023, he finally forced the Japanese police to put him in handcuffs.
I have a lot of Japanese friends. I'm half Japanese, half black. My dad is Japanese, my mom is black.
Ismael puts on a mask with Gino holding the camera as they trespass on a construction site in Osaka. As one of the workers tried to usher him out of the site, he began repeatedly yelling Fukushima at them. While he shouted Fukushima at workers, mocking the nuclear meltdown that displaced 160,000 people and cost billions in recovery, his chat was rewarding him with digital coins. He was trading the dignity of a nation for the price of a cup of coffee. It was a 100% loss in social capital for a 0.01% gain in revenue. Although he got the reaction he was looking for on the internet, that incident proved to be the final straw. On September 21, 2023, police arrested Johnny Somali for trespassing on the construction site while he was live on a stream.
Oh my God, who are these guys? Police? Why they unmarked car? How many cops is this? Hi.
Hi. It's on. Guns are on for now. It's on. Take it off.
On everything.
His accomplice, Gino, was later arrested at a different location. Although Gino was released shortly after, Johnny was charged and held until December 2023, when he was convicted and fined 200,000 yen, approximately $1,300. Somali was also banned from the country until 2029, but the 200,000 yen fine wasn't a victory for Somali, it was a summary indictment. Japan didn't want to house him, they wanted to erase him. As Ramsey walked away, he wasn't reflecting on his 100 days in the Japanese cell. He took his experience as a badge of honor, a node of infamy he could trade for higher donation tiers. He had successfully audited the Japanese system and walked away with nothing but a fine. To a man with a psychology, this wasn't a warning, it was a green light. He didn't return to Arizona to disappear. Instead, he looked at the globe and asked, "Who's next?" In early 2024, he landed in Israel. He landed in a country that was not in a polite mood. Israel was navigating a period of intense internal protests and regional instability, a high-friction environment that would have signaled caution to any rational traveler. But for Somali, friction was his entire business model. He began his Israel audit by testing the same boundaries he broke in Tokyo. But the response was immediate and visceral.
I don't want no problem. I didn't say nothing about you.
Unlike the commuters on the Tokyo subway, the people on the streets of Tel Aviv weren't conditioned to ignore him. He targeted African immigrants with verbal harassment, but the politeness gap he relied on in Japan didn't exist here. He was physically confronted almost immediately.
Hold it.
In a bizarre twist of fate, after that confrontation, the local police arrested his detractor and left him. To Somali, this was the ultimate validation. As the police dragged the immigrant away, he kept yelling, "Go to jail," and called him a mutt.
Arrest him! Yes, yes! Yeah, go to jail! Go to jail! You dumbass!
But the police didn't see his verbal attack as enough reason to arrest him. Hence, he believed that no matter what chaos he caused, his American passport and local laws would always act as his personal shield.
Oh, I'm going. I'm American passport. I'm American. Okay. I'm American. I know. I listen. Go.
Flights were grounded. The Iron Dome was active.
Oh, it's a missile! Yo, what the f***?
And Johnny Somali was stuck. In a country literally braced for conflict, he decided to treat the local police force like NPCs in a video game. On April 7, 2024, he took his cameras to the anti-government protest taking place that day. While thousands of Israelis were fighting for the future of their democracy, Somali was busy filming himself harassing a female police officer.
That changed your life!
This led to a confrontation with other officers on the scene, resulting in him being taken into custody in a rather comical way. The image of Somali being hauled off by two officers went viral instantly. To the internet, it looks like justice. But to Somali, it was a joke. His 16-minute detention was a speedrun of the legal system. He was back on the streets before his phone battery even dropped 5%. This didn't humble him. It convinced him he was the protagonist of a simulation where the rules didn't apply. And this illusion of immunity is what led him to his most sacrilegious stunt yet, the desecration of the Western Wall. There's a centuries-old custom where people from all over the world place written prayers in the crevices of the stones. Somali decided to replace those prayers with something else. He took folded images of controversial figures who he called his favorite Jews and tucked them into the holy wall.
I love you. We love you.
filming the entire act of desecration for his global audience. When the police were alerted to his antics and confronted him, he once again played the clueless tourist card, and once again he was allowed to leave. During his time in Israel, he went live on a stream, freestyling and boasting about all of his past antics.
Every country I go, I turn that up. I had Japanese crashing out. I had Japanese sliding.
He said some of the most unimaginable things I cannot show you for obvious reasons.
We everybody. And guess what? And the cartel is on my side.
And that act was the final straw for Kick. For a platform often called the Wild West of streaming, a place that prides itself on being uncensorable, Somali was officially deemed a platform killer. This wasn't just a loss of followers, it was a total liquidation of his primary revenue stream. He was now a digital nomad with no home, forced onto Rumble to salvage what was left of his audience. By the time he boarded a flight out of Tel Aviv, Somali's audit of the world's legal systems was complete. He had insulted Japan and walked, he had desecrated Israel and walked. He had survived the Wild West of Kick and transitioned to Rumble. He believed he had discovered a global glitch in the Matrix. As long as he had an American passport and a camera, he could spit on any culture and simply fly away when things got heated. Johnny Somali retreated to the US for a little over 3 months while lobbying for his Kick account to be reinstated and promising to have learned from his past mistakes. However, the events that followed showed he hadn't learned anything at all. On September 27, 2024, Johnny Somali arrived in Seoul, South Korea with a god complex and a fresh itinerary of provocation. He didn't realize that Korea wasn't planning on letting him board his return flight. His very first notable act in the country was harassing a musical band in the middle of a live performance. It didn't end badly for him though, as one of the musicians only made sure to escort him out of the podium without involving the police. But the Johnny Somali we've come to know will not stop at anything until he makes himself the most infamous man in Korea. And clearly, before he goes to any country, he does his research enough to know some of the saddest moments in their histories, which is why his next move aroused the exact reaction he was looking for. On his next stream, he sat near a comfort woman statue, professing his love for the Korean people and claiming that everything he did while in Japan was for Korea.
I stand with the Korean people. I love Korea. And everything that I did in Japan was for the Korean and the Chinese people.
He ended his speech with a kiss on her cheek. Now, this might seem like it's not a big deal, but it is. You see, this statue is one of many in the city of Seoul, representing nearly 200,000 Korean women forced into slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. So it's totally understandable to find out that the Koreans didn't consider kissing her on the cheek a friendly gesture. And it didn't take long before everyone started talking about it. In the wake of the criticism, Johnny Somali didn't offer an apology. Instead, he promised he'd look for another one and do something worse.
Send me the right bit. The statue tomorrow. What the fuck are you talking about?
Meanwhile, he spent the days that followed harassing and provoking random people.
I want to ask you a question. Talk to me. What hood you been?
But all of these antics didn't lead to an encounter with the police, so he decided to take things up a gear. Johnny boarded a public bus and almost immediately made his presence felt by playing loud music and arguing with anyone who dared to complain.
I don't see Korean.
So, one of the passengers called the cops. Sensing the cops would soon arrive, he quickly alighted the bus and made his way out of the scene. But somehow, the police tracked him down and arrested him, which he made sure to capture on stream. A few hours later, they let him go, and he delightedly shared the update with his followers.
Oh, lie, this is not Japan. Americans have way more freedom here.
But unlike the Israeli police, they let him go deliberately so he'd rack up more offenses. In other words, they were watching every move and waiting for more mistakes. As expected, Johnny didn't disappoint.
Dude, can you tell me? Go.
Just go.
Let's go.
Okay, that's okay.
What I do? No, you need to tell me what I do. What I do. Taka. Can somebody translate what I do? What is the problem?
Somehow, he had the gut feeling the police were after him and even informed his audience that he was planning to leave the country as quickly as possible. But before leaving, he decided he was going to leave the Koreans with a big souvenir. But that decision became his biggest mistake. It turned out he hadn't forgotten about his plan to desecrate another comfort woman statue near the Japanese embassy in Korea.
It pissed the Koreans off so much. Yo, chat, I brought the baby oil to this, but they said it's locked up, bro. They got this shit locked up.
Because it was fenced, he was able to find another one nearby and did abhorrent things to it.
Let's just head to the comfort woman statue. Go put some baby oil on it and go to the statue.
Meanwhile, Gino linked up with him again in Korea, and as one would expect, that encouraged him to take his antics up another level. Somali was in a constant battle to outdo his previous levels of craze to keep the coins rolling, but it came at a cost. In Japan, the confrontations were random. In Korea, they were monetized. As Somali's disrespect for national symbols went viral, a rumored $1 million bounty began circulating online for anyone who could physically intercept him on stream. Whether the bounty was literal or satirical didn't matter. The market reacted.
W stream, are you guys enjoying the stream today? Whoa, what is that?
Different country, buddy.
So you cannot touch me. You want to go to jail right now?
Local creators began hunting his live stream location, turning Somali from the predator into the prey. The most high-profile audit of Somali's physical safety came from Yu Deo-Jun, a former rogue special forces soldier turned YouTuber. In a widely shared clip, Yu intercepted Somali, leaving him visibly incapacitated.
야, 소말리! 때렸다! 레전드! 레전드!
While Yu was eventually fined roughly $7,000, around 9.5 million won, the public's response revealed the national dignity at stake. A global crowdfunding effort supported by high-profile creators like Donut Operator, who reportedly contributed $4,000, covered Yu's legal penalties within hours. The message was clear. In Korea, the public was willing to pay the tax for his removal. Whoever physically interfered with Johnny Somali faced an instant rebuke from the Korean authorities. This only encouraged his recklessness, but it was a trap. Officers were watching his every move. On October 17, 2024, his luck ran out at the Mapo district. After a female convenience store employee attempted to enforce basic store policies regarding alcohol, Ismael escalated. He intentionally desecrated the premises, pouring instant noodles across the tables and floor, while broadcasting a barrage of targeted verbal abuse and high-decibel music. Following a report from store employee, the Seoul Mapo police investigated the footage and handed the case to prosecutors in early November. He was subsequently indicted without detention for the convenience store incident. He expected another summary indictment, the kind of $1,300 he paid in Osaka to buy his freedom, but he had ignored the technical reality of Article 314 of the Korean Criminal Act. In South Korea, obstruction of business isn't a nuisance tax. It's a felony with a 5-year sentencing ceiling. Because the prosecution filed a formal indictment rather than a summary fine, the court immediately imposed an exit prohibition. The man who made a career out of flying away from his mess was now legally tethered to the very soil he had spent weeks insulting. As the April 15, 2026 sentencing approached, the court wasn't just looking at pranks, they were auditing violations of Article 7, weighing Ismael's clout against the national dignity of the Republic of Korea.
Japan need to come back and take Korea. This my message to the judge.
Interestingly, the authorities didn't keep him in jail during the trial, a move that proved to be its own kind of punishment. Barred from living, banned from every major platform, and legally unable to work, Johnny Somali became an indigent of his own making. He survived in Seoul only through the charity of a man with a much darker legal history, Young John Hank Yu. Yu, a cautionary tale himself, was deported from the US in 2020 after a federal firearms conviction. Now he acts as Somali's primary benefactor and roommate, an alliance of two men who both failed to glitch the global legal system. Dependent on Yu and tiny crypto donations from a Telegram group that treats him like a circus animal, Somali wasn't a mogul, he was a beggar in a suit. But Ismael chose to complicate his situation even further. He facilitated the distribution of manipulated, non-consensual images targeting a prominent Korean streamer, Bang Bang. He claimed a follower created the synthetic media, but by sharing it on stream, he crossed a line that the Korean legal system does not forgive. By early 2026, Somali and his legal team thought he had successfully negotiated a way out. They walked into the courtroom ready to play the Japan-Israel strategy, the sincere apology pivot.
나는 조마오 죄송합니다.
I was not aware of the significance of the statue. You know what I mean? It was just entertainment for my audience.
They pleaded guilty to the interference of business charges, the ramen incident, the subway's disruptions, hoping the judge would see a misguided tourist and hand down a simple fine. Somali sat there, likely anticipating a flight back to Arizona by sunset. But the South Korean prosecution wasn't looking to deport him, they were looking to deconstruct him. As soon as the guilty pleas for the minor offenses were on the record, the prosecution dropped the hammer. They used those pleas to establish a pattern of intentional malice. Then they hit him with a charge his lawyers hadn't planned for, the Special Act on Sexual Violence. In South Korea, digital harassment involving manipulated imagery is a high-priority criminal offense. By linking his physical nuisance behavior to the Digital Predatory Act, the prosecution stripped away his clueless prankster defense. This wasn't a joke anymore, it was a digital felony. By pleading guilty to the lesser crimes, Somali had inadvertently validated the claim that he was a synthetic harasser. The man who thought he was auditing the world's laws just realized he's the one being liquidated. The price of this audit? It's no longer a $1,300 fine. He was sentenced to a prison where the only clout he'll have is the number of cabbages he can harvest per hour. On April 15th, the South Korea judge made his choice. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison. And worse, it'll be a prison meant for Koreans and not for foreigners. He'll spend 6 months locked up with citizens of the very country he degraded. But did the punishment fit the crime? Johnny Somali spent a year living on handouts, trapped in a country that despised him, only to walk away with 6 months in prison. Is this a victory for the politeness gap? Or did the system just decide he wasn't worth the taxpayers' money to feed for more years in prison? Let me know in the comments. Was justice served, or did the glitch work one last time?